Where's the big surf? I forgot.
North Shore?
No, the North Shore, no.
Macau?
Macau.
Yeah.
He lives in Macau.
Oh, he lives in Macau?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that area.
It's right on the beach in Macau. Been there for years.
So, and you lived in Waikiki, right?
Yeah, I'm 17 now.
You know, there's a certain point at which you gotta just get on the mat and wrestle, but to have somebody with Billy's experience, like he had old timers show him the right thing to do, it's kind of passing along the tradition in the right way. So that's how you learn, right?
Yeah, the thing is, like the old timers, all probably world champions or champions of some kind, that are retired, and there was no distraction in those days. There was no internet, computers, telephones, clubs to go out with, or like social, like nobody had any money. So all the youth of all the countries, like, were full of fire, feminine fire, and they wanted to do something, so they joined a soccer or rugby club, or judo, jiu-jitsu, boxing, and the toughest of all, catch can, wrestling, submission wrestling. And you had many sparring partners because there were just hundreds of guys around in every town. But the old timers used to come down to the gym because of the atmosphere and they'd see you do something wrong. And after your training session, you'd go to one side, explain to you, show you, get you back on the mat with a different sparring partner and make you do it. And the thing was, I used to wake up with a head up screaming because I hear this voice in my Billy Riley's voice, my coach, Karl Gotch's coach, screaming at me, do it again. And I'd wake up like, with ringing in my ears, do it again. Oh God, you know. So, wrestling is
It's why you can't, Billy's gonna be traveling back and forth between here and Japan. And so if you can come out and visit and get some hands-on training like these guys, by all means, get out here and do it. Thank you, man.
and you never stop. The thing is, with catch can wrestling, the major thing is to learn how to learn. Once you get that, once your coach, like Jake or myself or some other old timer, has got into your mind how you can learn, you never stop learning. I'm learning now. Because with this mixed martial arts,
Yeah, if you just look at the camera and, you know, I'm asking you questions.
Okay, it's like you're the camera.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, we're here at Lineage Combat Sports in San Juan Capistrano, and we're here with...
I'm Jake Shannon, the founder of Scientific Wrestling, and this gentleman is Mr. Billy Robinson, very legendary wrestler, catch can.
Okay, Jake, tell us about Scientific Wrestling.
I founded Scientific Wrestling as a company because there really was not a reliable source for catch can wrestling in terms of just your average guy who's interested to find it. I mean, that's basically, I was looking for information, I couldn't find it, and I kept looking and looking, and I gathered enough information for myself that I thought there's got to be more people that are just like me. So I opened it up to make it available to as many people as possible, and that includes learning from men like Billy or you know, Karl when he was alive, or some other guys that are very good in wrestling, Fujiwara and some other guys that know a few moves.
Okay, give us a little bit of the history of catch can wrestling.
Okay, catch can, and you know, I'll defer to Billy on this. You know, I want to make one note. Scientific wrestling is kind of a euphemism for catch can. It's another way to say that you're doing catch wrestling. And the reason I chose scientific wrestling is because I think it's important to emphasize the simple concepts of leverage and biomechanics and science. You know, being efficient, not working too hard, and doing the right thing in the right way. So that's really the emphasis of scientific wrestling. Now, catch can is a Western style of grappling that's submission oriented, but it also has a pin. So we find that a lot of the modern styles of wrestling that we're used to, whether it's mixed martial arts, it's pro wrestling, or even amateur wrestling, all actually came from catch as catch can. They all broke off and did their own thing. The pro wrestling became work. The MMA added some different things, which originally started out in UWFI, which Billy was a trainer for in Japan. And amateur wrestling, like judo took out the dangerous maneuvers from jiu-jitsu. They took out the dangerous moves from catch as catch can and changed the time periods, shortened them and whatnot. And now we have our scholastic folk style of wrestling. But I'm sure Billy can tell us a little bit more of the origins of catch as catch can, whether they be the pure English Wigan style or the style here that kind of developed with Funk Burns
Yeah, well, don't forget that it was still from Wigan because the guy that started it and taught Burns, Connors was from England, from Wigan actually.
Wow.
And although he was good, he wasn't that good compared with old timers before him. But you got to remember, the British at one time, there was a saying that some never said on the British Isles, is because with their navy in the 1500s, traveled all, controlled most of the world.
The empire, the British Empire.
The old British Empire. India, Australia, Canada, America up to a point until you kicked us out. But wrestling was always a big sport in Europe for thousands of years. And the tournaments going back over 2,000 years that I know of. And the thing is, when these seamen went to the different countries, and every country had its own style of wrestling, they picked up the best of all the different styles, brought it back to Wigan, and they polished it up and made submissions out of all the different moves and made it scientific. Example, Henry VIII, the King of England, wrestled Louis of France over a dispute about who should have been the King of France. And the Pope backed Louis of France, and that's why we fight the French all the time. But that was in the 1530s. Now, even in those days, jiu-jitsu men, they're called the kimura and the triangle. In those days, they were a figure four and a double wrestler. Well before jiu-jitsu ever heard or saw those submissions. Again, the jiu-jitsu guys that did travel in the late 1800s and early 1900s, when they finished up in Wigan, even the greatest, like for instance, the teacher of the Gracie family wrestled in Wigan and got beat by the catch as catch kind of submission. I mean, that's where they learned the wrestling and took you back to Brazil. And they didn't teach them the correct way because they still don't know how to do it properly. But what I can say about professional wrestling, submission style, catch as catch kind of style, is very simple. It is physical chess. It's not how strong you are, it's how smart you are. And you've got to be, like in a chess game, 2 or 3 moves ahead of where you are now. A common saying from the old coaches in Wigan would be, if you can see a move, or you think of a move to do, it's too late. Your body and training should have done it without you thinking or looking for it. It is real fun. It is real fun. It's a controlled thing that once you learn it and you learn how to learn, you never stop learning. And as I can say for me, I have fun coming down and giving my knowledge off now to different people who want to learn how to wrestle, not play at it, and not show wrestling. I talk about real wrestling, real submission wrestling, and that is catch wrestling. Believe you me, it is the greatest sport in the world. Once you get into it, it'll be with you for your whole life. Once you start to love it, you'll never forget it. It's like riding a bike. You know how to ride a bike. Once you learn how to wrestle, you'll never forget
Okay. Now there might be some.
Let's cut real quick. Let me deal with Jack real quick. Sorry.
Very interesting.
Yeah, this will go over.
Was that too long?
No, that was great. I mean, our show, it runs about 40-45 minutes, and we're gonna have different segments on it. But yeah, I mean, if this gets, people on the East Coast more interested in coming out here, that's a great thing,
I trained a kid from New Jersey. He came down to Nashville, Tennessee when I was coaching the UWF in Nashville. God, I can't think of his name now. He's from New Jersey. Just can't think of his name. But if he sees it, he's a professional, one of the professional deals like that now, but then he was with the UWF,
Okay. That's awesome.
and he fought in Japan, and then they sent him from New Jersey down to Nashville, Tennessee, where I had a gym there, out with the UWF, and the gym, the police boxing gym actually, and we used to wrestle in there.
So just make sure.
Then his first name was Jason. Jason.
Okay, are we ready? Sorry about that. It was money. Gotta stop for money. Okay. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. In the world today, with there's a lot of disbelief as to how this art is effective in mixed martial arts. But why don't you tell our audience about some of the people who are in MMA today, who are some of the greatest fighters out there right now?
Well, without a doubt, Sakuraba, Tamura, Takada, Josh Barnett from America, who I coached them all, but they are the best in the world today. The thing is, with mixed martial arts, television and money has cut it down to make it for an audience sport that's more exciting, that's made it more powerful and just striking sport than actual the grappling sport. But for instance, when he first started, the first cage match in Denver,
Yep.
when they had the first one,
Okay.
they expected, because of Bruce Lee and Hollywood and the kickboxing arts and the kick and the karate kicks, that the kickers and the strikers were going to win everything. Well, what happened was the wrestlers and the jiu-jitsu men won everything for the first 5 martial art competitions that they had. So then they broke off to K1
Yep.
and the kickboxing and Pride, and changed the rules to suit their men so that they could win. But they couldn't win against the jiu-jitsu and the grapplers or the catch-as-catch-can wrestlers. And at this time, there weren't any very good catch wrestlers there, because the old style had died and all the old timers were either retired or dead or dying. So the thing is, like I retired in those days. Karl Gotch had retired well before
Well,
there's,
and if you don't mind,
yeah.
look, you have to be smart a little bit about the business and understand how it kind of works in terms of those UFCs that were in Denver. I was there. I was in college, and that's where I first got turned on to this back in '94. And you have to remember, those shows, the first UFC, who was the promoter? Gracie. It was a Gracie promotion. And if you're smart about the business, you understand that booking influences how things turn out. So you don't have to have a work. You don't have to have people faking to say, oh, you'll win. You book a decent guy against a complete loser or fish, that decent guy's going to look like a champion. If you don't think the Gracies knew the state of grappling at that time? How come they didn't invite Sakuraba or any of the guys from BWFI at that time to do it? Because it would have been too much of a challenge. It was brilliant. It was very, very smart business because they knew that the reputation of pro wrestling here was shit. Pardon my language.
Can I cut in here?
Yeah, please.
They introduced Shamrock was Shamrock.
Right.
Now the point is, Shamrock got a big, big name because of that. But Shamrock compared with like the Danny Hodges and Luthes and from America, the Karl Gotches and Billy Robbins, myself, Billy Joyce's, the Geevers, catch, the real old-time catch. Shamrock, his knowledge is very, very limited. And he wasn't on steroids, and he wasn't anywhere near as big as he is now. He was in better condition. You know what I mean? But Shamrock would never have been considered a good catch camera. You know what I mean?
And he knew a leg lock and a heel hook and a few maneuvers, but that was it. He had not spent the time on the mat pure catch can wrestling. He came from an amateur, then did some pro wrestling, and then because of pro wrestling, he got sent over to Japan and learned a few things. And Fujiwara helped him out, learn a few things, but then before long he left.
Okay, let me explain to you about this. Karl Gotch, my father started Karl Gotch. He was in the 1948 London Games, and he was a wrestler from Belgium. My uncle saw him, and then my uncle was wrestling in Antwerp, Belgium. I went over, he saw Karl, and he'd seen him in the Olympics. He said, listen, come back to Wigan and see how he'll do. Well, he went back to Wigan, and 145-pound guys were beating him with submissions. He couldn't believe it. So he said, okay. He left Belgium, came, lived at my house for 3 or 4 months, and then my uncle's house. Then he went to Wigan, which is 26 miles away, and lived there for 5 years, 6 years. And that's where he learned how to wrestle. Now that all these names you get now from Japan, Anthony Inoki, Fujiwara, Fujinami, and many, many more, Maeda, all came from Inoki, who Karl Gotch taught, or I taught, but our teachings were the same from Wigan. So all you great catch wrestlers in Japan get their style from the Wigan style of wrestling.
And guys like Joe Robbie were big influences, Ben Sherman.
Oh yeah, well, don't forget in those days, if you're going back that far, Billy Joyce was also the greatest scientific wrestler of all time. To me, he could beat anybody. Benny Sherman went around the world and beat everybody, and he wasn't a heavyweight, he was a 185-pounder.
Where was he from?
Benny Sherman was from Arizona. Oh, the last time I saw him was in Arizona.
But he was an
Before
American.
that, he was an American, yeah. Bullet Bob Myers, South African. Then you had the Finn, God, Finland from the north side.
Matt Grubmeyer, but well, what about Frank Wolf? You ever hear of him?
Yeah, but Grubmeyer was better. Grubmeyer from Germany, originally from Germany. He wrestled as Ray Steele in America. Kito Pavlov, I can't pronounce it. Kino Pavlov.
Oh, Waitonen, Vaitonen.
Yeah.
Kino Waitonen.
Yeah, well, he was a catcher's camp.
There we go.
Submission wrestler from Norway, the Nordic lands. So in the old days, the Nordic people, as I was telling you guys earlier, about the upper body strength.
The Greco coming from there.
The Greco and then the catcher's catch can, the compete all the Greco, came from the Nordic countries, and the north of England is where Wigan is. Those countries are very close and used to wrestle each other all the time. In the 1800s, they used to have in Germany 6-month tournaments every day for 6 months.
Wow.
They keep the top guys that had all the wins, the guys that lost so many times, they would change for another set of guys. The Hamburg tournament started January 1st to June 30th, took one day off, then started July 2nd all the way through to December. And so you had two 6-week tournaments, 6-month tournaments that were sold out every night.
Wow. Real legitimate wrestling.
Yeah, really legitimate wrestling. So now wrestling, you can get old photographs. Like you see photographs of the first bodybuilders like Eugene Sandow and George Hackenschmidt.
And they were all wrestlers.
They were wrestlers. They did the strongman deal and the bodybuilding thing to earn money because there was no real big money in matches. There were no arenas in those days. You wrestled like in England in the bowling pools.
And that was mostly for side bets. It wasn't a big
And for
promotion.
side bet. No, there was no promotion for that because nobody could read, so they couldn't even get read the newspapers or the leaflets that were put out. There was no radio in those days. There was no television in those days. It was word of mouth. The wrestlers would go around like in India. I did this in the 60s. Go around the different areas in rickshaws with all the different wrestlers and big people speaking out of megaphones to let the people know to go to the stadium. And the stadiums were open cricket stadiums or soccer stadiums.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's how it was done in those days, you know what I mean? It's great. I mean, I can talk for hours and hours, not stop and talk about different areas of the facts and different great guys from different countries. It's just so good. The thing is respect. You learn respect. Anybody that goes to a catch can. It's very hard on them at first because basically they don't get shown too much and they use this as sparring partner where people practice the submissions on. And the coach will watch you for, like in my case, it was close to 4 months before he said, okay, we start to teach this kid. They wanted to make sure I would stay, stick it out, no matter what happened to me. And that's what they did, not just with me, with everyone.
And it makes sure that the guy is solid on
And then
defense too.
once you do that, like the old times you practice with guys you can learn how to beat. It's not like when you beat him, oh, he's a piece of shit or he's no good. That never happened. You respected them for just getting on the mat.
Yep.
And later on, when you were that much better, if they got in a problem, you would help them out. You know what I mean? The respect is there with anybody. No matter how low or how high, you have respect for anybody that's gone through the correct training. Because you know that nobody will say, I am this, I am that. That would never happen because there's always somebody in that gym that'll knock the shit out of you.
Yeah, the guys that are
As soon as you start to learn,
the guys going around saying I'm the greatest and I'm the world's greatest and this.
it's like
they're the ones that are the
I
worst.
needed a sparring partner in Manchester. The amateur champion at that time was called Tom Woods. And I used to spar with him. And I would, after a while, let him take me down and get behind me. And I'd practice my escapes from underneath, but not beat him. And then his head got so big and he started to talk to all his friends. So I said, invite them out round to watch you look out with me. And then that day that he brought, after he'd been talking, I'd be boom, boom, submission here, submission there, take him down, suplex him, make him look like nothing. And I used to call it the 6-week tune-up, because then I go back, then slowly let him get behind where he could think that he could beat me. And then he'd start talking again. And after about 6 weeks, I'd say, okay, time for the tune-up. And then we'll do it again, you know. But that's, I mean, he has the greatest respect for me, you know what I mean? Because now he understands. But you learn respect of your elders and guys that have done it before you, and young guys coming up. Unfortunately, there's very little of that going around in the youth today. No respect for anything, you know, because it's it's easy to do computer work, talk on the cell phone, go to disco or whatever, the name of the dance clubs are now, drink water, beautiful girls. You know, great, that's good, sure, it's easy. But if you want to be a martial artist, you've got to put your time in the gym and learn the disciplines or whatever style, either if it's judo or jiu-jitsu, taekwondo. I want to leave taekwondo out because I don't believe too much in that, because they've never beat anybody. Thai kickboxing and the two kicking sports that are excellent are Lassabat from France and Thai kickboxing, which I have a very close contact with. And there's a big argument, and I made it because the argument is where the Thai fighting came from. Say, well, Thai kickboxing, because they became the best in the world. But did the French sailors take Lassabat to Thailand, or did the French sailors who went to Thailand take it back to France? Because they both started approximately the same time in the countries. You know, and the rules were basically identical.
Right.
You know, and so it's a great argument. It's like trying to say, who's the best between Billy Robbins, myself, or Karl Gotch? Well, there's a 12-year difference.
100%.
Well, him at his best is like probably about 12 years before me. So when I was coming into my best, he'd gone over the hill and was going back. And when I did fight him, I did beat him. But he was an older man at that time. So I understand that, you know.
And that goes to the respect.
For me, with Billy Joyce, you know, when I beat Billy Joyce for the British Championship, is where I first started. God, it was the hardest match I had in my life. I mean, he didn't give me anything. I got black eyes, cuts from elbows, like we're talking about elbows and stuff, ankle submissions, nose, and when I finally beat him, you know, we had respect for each other. And then after that, I got where I was still learning, and I got better, and he was getting older. But even now, if anybody asks me who's the greatest wrestler in the world, I always say Billy Joyce. Billy Joyce will say George Gregory. It was his own.
Interesting.
And then you take Luthez. Luthez always would say, I'd strangle Lewis.
Or Tragos.
Well, no, Lewis is better than Tragos.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
But Tragos was smaller and more scientific.
Yeah.
But the most dangerous was Edwards. Yeah, so he would never say anything against Lewis, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, what happens here is, a good example is, you had another great wrestler from Nebraska, submission wrestler, the old school style, that could beat anybody except Ed Lewis, Joe Peasant, Jack Peasant. But he was lighter than Lewis, and they were fighting one night in New York. And it was like a working tag match with Pasternak said, no, not Pasternak, Pasternak was another guy from Minnesota who was excellent in those days. And John Pasternak said, Jack Pasternak, because John and Jack had said, said that, okay, no, I want to try tonight, I can beat you tonight, because he knew Lewis was
Yeah. So that was what didn't do it.
and so he challenged, and Lewis didn't back down. And Lewis still managed to beat him, you know. But Fez never forgot that. And from that day on, to him, Pesek was no good. Well, that was not true. Pesek was still the best at the 185, 190 in his time. You know, Lewis was 210.